What is an absolute word? And how is it misused in our everyday oral and written language? Here are two sentences that are using an absolute word in an incorrect way. The Mona Lisa is a very unique painting. Doesn't sound wrong, does it? Here's sentence number 2. We found the most ideal place for our wedding. Sounds correct, doesn't it? But in both of those cases, there is a misuse of the absolute word. So let's start with the definition of an absolute word. Well, take a look at the word absolute. It means the ultimate, the number one in position, the highest degree of something. Let's go back to the first sentence. The Mona Lisa is a very unique painting. The absolute word in that sentence is unique. Now, unique means the only one of its kind, nothing like it. It's number one. That is an ultimate word. How can something be very number one? The Mona Lisa is a very number one painting? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Unique is an ultimate word, or as we call them, absolute word. Second sentence, we found the most ideal place for our wedding. Ideal is an ultimate word. It's an absolute word. And ideal means perfect with absolutely no flaws. It's perfect. So in that sentence, we found the most perfect with no flaws place compared to other places that could be perfect with no flaws. Well, only one can be perfect with no flaws. You can't have a modifier in front of it. It can't be most perfect. It's perfect. And therefore, it's an absolute word. And we don't put modifiers in front of absolute words because the absolute word is the ultimate word. It doesn't need any more modifiers. Let me give you some examples now of typical absolute words in a sentence and their basic meaning. Complete, which means having all necessary parts, an absolute word. Dead, no longer alive. Devoid, which means entirely or completely lacking something. Equal, which means the exact same as something else. Eternal, lasting forever without end. Fatal, deadly, causing ultimate death. Final, coming to an end. Ideal, perfect with no flaws. Identical, exactly alike. Infinite, which means limitless, endless. And unanimous, which means fully or completely in agreement with something else. These are typical absolute words that when you use them in a sentence, you don't put modifiers in front of them, and you can't compare these meanings of these words with more than just one thing. You can't compare something that's more perfect than others. It's perfect. There's only no flaws for one. Do not use them in comparisons, and you don't modify these absolute words in sentences as well. So let's take a look at some examples of how we can correct ultimate words or absolute words in sentences when they're misused. In the sentence, we can change the absolute word to a word that means a little less than what it is saying so that you can compare one thing to another with that word. You can remove the modifier of the absolute word. If you had something that was very complete or quite complete or more complete or most complete than something else, you can only have one thing that's complete in comparisons with an absolute word. So you simply remove the very, the quite, the more, the most, and make your statement an absolute statement that something is, for example, complete. Or third, you can diminish that absolute word by adding the word nearly or almost. It's not quite the ultimate word. Then you can use that word in some kind of a comparison that would be logical. So let's take a look at some sentences and see, number one, the absolute word used incorrectly, and then how we can correctly use each one of those words in the sentences. That hairless cat is very unique. Well, unique means one of a kind, number one. And you can't be very one of a kind or very number one. Number one is number one. It's an ultimate word. So how can we fix that sentence? First way is to change unique to a word that you can use in a comparison of two or more things. So we could say that hairless cat is very unusual. Now, unusual is not an ultimate word, and it's now correct. Or you can make it an ultimate word and say that hairless cat is unique, because there is only one kind of hairless cat. Your skiing technique is more perfect than mine. Now, perfect means as good as it is possible to be. It's an ultimate word. It cannot be used logically in comparisons. So how could we fix that? Well, we could diminish the ultimate word perfect by putting nearly in front of it so that we can use it in a comparison. Your skiing technique is more nearly perfect than mine. Now you can diminish perfect and the sentence is now logical. Or you could change the absolute word perfect to a different word that's not an ultimate or absolute word. Your skiing technique is more refined or more effective than mine. Both of those words are more reasonable words. They're not absolute words. So in conclusion, I want you to have a completely unique and perfect day using the absolute. Good luck.